Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, April 14th, 2025, and our friend Laith Marouf is back with us. Welcome back, Laith.
Great to be with you, Nima.
Well, let's get started, Laith, with what has happened in Gaza, which is so sad that the Israeli warplanes have targeted the only functioning hospital in Gaza, Baptist Hospital. What do we know about that?
Yeah, this is the Ahli Baptist Hospital. It's run by the Anglican Church, in which is near it. And if our viewers may remember, this was the first hospital they attacked in Gaza in 2023. And at the time, the Zionists lied and said it was a stray missile from Hamas or Islamic Jihad that landed in the hospital. And since then, they attacked this hospital 4 times. And finally, now, obviously, they don't even care anymore about hiding it or what anybody thinks because they can get away with, mass genocide, destruction of every other hospital and every other clinic in the Gaza Strip. They did this attack on Palm Sunday. So the Christian world, including Christian Palestinians, were, preparing for the holy day. And this is the response of the Zionists. By the way, the same time that they attacked Al Ahli Baptist Hospital in Gaza, the Israelis invaded South Lebanon and decided to destroy the statue of St. George in Yarun village, right on the border, with a bulldozer. So, again, this was on Palm Sunday. So, this is all deliberate targeting of Christian holy sites and Christian sites in general on a holy day for Christians. And at the same time that they were doing this invasion of South Lebanon just to destroy this statue, they brought with them fanatic religious Jewish supremacist colonists to tour the areas they occupy of South Lebanon and of South Syria. So, again, it's clear the religious war intentions, the psychological warfare, the desecration of everybody else's holy sites or sites in general is the priority of these Zionists.
How much of the southern Lebanon is still in the hand of Israelis?
There is the 5 hills that they occupy in the south of Lebanon and the areas that they had occupied before the war started, meaning in the Shaba farms and the area around it. So it's not much, but they keep on, doing incursions whenever they feel like the Lebanese population is getting comfortable, and just to show everybody who's the genocidal boss. And Look, the situation in South Lebanon is very fragile. We saw multiple attacks over the last week on new temporary shelters that the Lebanese population have been putting in their villages. And in response, we saw, starting yesterday, there was convoys of these mobile homes, prefabricated homes, going down to the south to station these mobile homes in the front villages. And we expect that the Zionists will be attacking those new mobile homes any minute now.
Laith, what do we know about Hezbollah and the way that they're trying? I don't know if they're trying to do something with the situation in southern Lebanon. And is that going to be with the government in Lebanon? Is that going to be something just among the Hezbollah leaders right now? How, what do we know about that? Or are they even thinking of doing something?
Yeah, I think they are rebuilding and reorganizing, and they're letting the path of
I lost your voice. It seems that you're muted, Laith. Yeah, it seems that the mic is not connected.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you're back. You're back, Laith.
Yeah. For some reason, the mic just,
Was shifted.
yeah, shifted. Is it still good, or should I change the
Yeah,
mic?
it's good. No, it's good.
Okay. Okay. Obviously Hezbollah just wants the new government to take action to see where it goes with this. But 2 days ago there was a survey published by Al Nahar newspaper, and Al Nahar newspaper is a newspaper that is funded by Hariri family. So it's pro-American, pro-Saudi, and they did a survey of the whole population of Lebanon. And one of the questions was, who do the Lebanese people consider as the biggest danger and the number one enemy of Lebanon? And 79% of the population said the number one enemy is Israel. When you break down this by sect, the vast majority of Sunnis and Shia and Druze see the same answer. And when you go down to the Christian population, even within the Maronite population that is represented by these two fascist parties, the Phalange and the Kata'ib, even there, a majority of the Maronite population, meaning over 58% of them, see Israel as the number one enemy and threat to Lebanon. So another question that was asked in this survey was about the weapons of the resistance. If disarming the resistance is a solution to the problems of Lebanon, and or if the people being asked want a disarmament of the resistance. And only 2.6% of the population of Lebanon said that this is what they want. They want a disarming of the resistance, and or that it will work in the favor of Lebanon if this happens. So, and looking even at the Maronite population, just around 10% of them said this. So clearly, all the propaganda that the West and its local vassals and vassals here in Lebanon have been pushing into the Lebanese population to, say that the Lebanese people want to have Hezbollah disarmed, did not work. So all the billions of dollars that were spent, the majority of Lebanese people understand that the military power of the resistance is what protects Lebanon. Finally, one of the other questions that was kind of very enlightening about what the Lebanese population wants here was about the election system here in Lebanon. And again, the Americans, the Zionists, and all their vassals have been pushing for the last 10 years this idea of federalizing Lebanon, this small, tiny country of 4 million people. They wanted to make it into federal states by municipality. So the fascist in one neighborhood can have a say against the majority around them. So even with all this propaganda to try to get people to approve this idea of federalism in Lebanon, less than 12% of the population saw this as a solution, and the vast majority, over almost 80% of the population, wants a electoral system that is not sectarian, that's one man, one vote. And clearly, in this situation, Hezbollah will have a majority in the parliament and will govern through democratic choice. And so, look at this. This is a survey done by an imperialist newspaper, and that has been propagating all these ideas against the resistance, being shocked at the outcome of this survey that shows that the vast majority of Lebanese, no matter what sect they come from, no matter what class or gender they are, or what region from Lebanon they are all supportive of the resistance. They see Israel as the number one enemy. They want to get rid of the sectarian reserved seats in the parliament so the government can really represent the will of its people. And this is probably very scary for the imperialists and the Zionists and their regional vassals. And it's also an indication of what would happen in any other Arabic country. If today the population in Syria is truly given a democratic choice, they will also choose the same choices that Lebanon is choosing right now. Same in any of the Arabic countries from Mauritania to Oman. The population here wants, the Arabic people want unity, they want an end of Israeli crimes, they want American control of the region to end. And that's the only path forward for the people here.
When you look at Lebanon today and with the new government, who has the upper hand in terms of putting pressure on the government? Is that the United States? Is that France, Macron, or who's that, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, the Americans and the Saudis definitely have the most influence over the government in Lebanon currently. But I think, you see, it's one thing to have influence. It's another that to be able to achieve whatever your influence aims are. So, given this survey that I just talked to you about, even if the Saudis pay off everybody in the government here or the Americans and try to disarm Hezbollah, they will have to face, if only 3%, less than 3% of the population want that happening, that means they will be having to face 97% of the population of Lebanon. And, this 97%, it means 97% of the soldiers in the military. It means 97% of people in the security forces. And so this is a unachievable goal, okay? You have to have an invading army from outside Lebanon to attempt this. 97% against disarming Hezbollah means that you can't even depend on a Christian supremacist militia like the Kata'ib to deliver on this, because even within their own population, the Maronites sect, the vast majority are against this idea. They can see how their villages in the south, of Maronite villages in the south of Iran, were desecrated, where Israeli soldiers defecated inside the churches. They desecrated the icons in the churches, and they even filmed themselves having a drunken, drugged up gay wedding in one of these churches, if some of our viewers remember. And finally, we just saw them, how they destroyed the statue of St. George. So the Maronites themselves know that if Hezbollah is disarmed, that they themselves will become victims to whoever has the arms, and that will be the Israelis and the Wahhabi death squads. So it's impossible that the Kata'ib and the Phalange here in Lebanon can deliver on civil war. So what is left for the Americans and the Saudis in terms of influence here in Lebanon? The only thing they can do is squeeze the economy, is continue to have their Wahhabi death squads of HTS that are under control of the Americans and their local vassals like Turkey and Saudi, to have the HTS continue harassing Lebanon on its borders and or cutting the transport of goods and pushing more and more refugees into the country. The only thing that the United States can do is have Israel continue bombing and invading. And all of these things, whether it's the threats from HTS on the border or Israel on the border or in the air, all of these things are actually driving the local Lebanese population into the hands and of the resistance, because the resistance is the only thing that's going to defend the Lebanese people against the head choppers of HTS if they cross the border. It's also the only thing that can defend Lebanon against these massive bombardments by the Zionists. So I think the Americans and their local vassals have realized right now the limit of whatever bribery schemes they have to control the government.
What I was somehow surprised with the case of Saudi Arabia. What's the link between Saudi Arabia and the government of Lebanon through which they're capable of putting pressure on the government? I lost your voice. Yeah. Same.
Same
Yeah,
thing.
you're back. You're back.
I'm back. Okay. You know, there's a problem with this the GI mic when you connect it to the Bluetooth. It does this, I guess. I'll not do this again. Next time I'll connect a different mic, but I just was hoping for better audio this time. Look, the Saudis used to be the #1 sponsor for the Sunni parties, meaning the future party of Hariri. But then they had that feud with the Hariri family, and they kidnapped Saad Hariri and tied him up on a chair in Riyadh and forced him to do a resignation on air from Riyadh, and eventually defunded his party. And right now, the Sunni population doesn't have really any centralized representation in terms of politics. And what the Saudis did at that point is that they shifted all their funding towards the two Christian supremacist parties, Kataib and the Falange, and decided that they're going to be their main sponsors. Now, this is a limited possibility of influence because of the Maronite population being so small, and or its representation percentage in the parliament also being smaller. But the Maronites pick the head of the military, and they also have the choice to appoint president, name the president. So those are very important positions, even though that there's not much representation on the ground and in the parliament. And that's what the Saudis have gotten right now. They've got control of these positions. The Americans are behind them, and the Sunni population in Lebanon is being punished. Okay, for what, on the one hand, for that problem between Hariri and the Saud family. The other is because the Sunni population in Lebanon, although they were a big part of them were supporting the overthrow of the Assad government in Syria, they still are not Wahhabi fanatics or Muslim Brotherhood fanatics. The majority of Sunnis in Lebanon are very liberal, much more liberal than any other Sunni population in the Arabic world. Okay, and so it's hard to get them to fully identify or fully support head choppers that want to put their wives and daughters in niqab. Okay, so it's not working as the Saudis would expect it to work. And right now the situation in Syria, especially with the mass targeting of the Sunni Sufi preachers. I mean, we just saw last week the former Mufti of Syria, who is a very, very, calm person. He's a very peaceful person. His son was assassinated by HTS during his university years, and the Grand Mufti of Syria at that time came out and crying on public television, but also forgave them, and then when they were caught, he went to the jail and forgave them again and asked for their release. Last week, he was allowed by the HTS government to leave Syria, and as he was leaving, he was kidnapped and put on blindfolded, and now we don't know where he is. He's disappeared. So, the vast majority of Sunnis in Lebanon here are watching what's happening in Syria, and they realize if HTS like groups get control of Lebanon, they are going to face the same fate as the Sufis of Syria, and that's not going to work out for them.
How is that possible, Laith? HTS like people taking over Lebanon. Is that the potential inside the country, or you're talking about outside, the forces outside Lebanon?
Definitely forces outside Lebanon. There is a few groups here in Lebanon that were active during the Syria war. They still have direct links to Turkey and the HTS. And those groups are in the north of Lebanon. And the border in the north of Lebanon is less protected because, Hezbollah is in the south and the Beqa' Valley. So if there is a major attack by HTS coupled with local militias that are Wahhabi in the Tarablos region, things can get out of hand. And once you cross the border in the north and in the Beqa' Valley, there's nothing to stop you, and or into Tarablos, Tripoli. You're on the main highway to Beirut, and it's easy going at that point. There's no Shia villages in the north of Lebanon on the coast, for instance. So it's the worst case scenario that Lebanon can face is an invasion from the north by HTS because of those realities. And remember, to screw up a country, to destroy a country, you don't need huge armies. You just need a few thousand fighters, and everything is in chaos. And and with a government here in Lebanon and that is fragmented, it's much easier to achieve such a thing.
How do you see the situation in Syria? Don't you think that they're totally involved with somehow some sort of chaos within the country? That's why I don't see that coming to Lebanon, because they're even Turkey has a lot of problem right now in Syria. And on the other hand, Laith, with the case of Lebanon, do you see the Trump administration right now? We can say that they know what they're gonna do with the case of Lebanon and the region. Are they gonna do the same as the Biden administration, or they have a slightly or totally different attitude?
Yeah, in Syria, the situation is uncontrollable. There's too many interests, and the local vassals and the empire itself are all not in agreement on who's going to get what part of the loot. I told you obviously about the Grand Mufti of Syria, what happened to him. There's also, we saw on Palm Sunday, all the churches being surrounded by HTS gunmen in masks, and they're filming everybody that's coming to the mass. So the Christian population, is very worried about their future and what's going to happen to their sons and daughters. There was also an arrest warrant issued for Mother Agnes, the very famous, Christian nun from Syria that was over the last 3 months documenting the genocide of Alawis and Christians in the coast area. She's the person that we have the archive of these crimes from, and now she's they put a price on her head. We haven't heard, of course, any of the churches in the West condemn the threats to the lives of Mother Agnes. And we didn't hear anything about the attacks on the churches and the cemeteries of Christians at all. This is what's shocking, to me, seeing how the Syrian people's lives are so, underappreciated in comparison to anybody else. I mean, you'd think that the Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church or whatever it is, would be worried about the oldest churches in the world that are in Ma'lula and Saydnaya, or the archaeological sites of Christianity, or the head of John the Baptist that is in the heart of the Umayyad Mosque. But it's really shocking. It's really shocking how little interest there is in the lives of even the Christian Syrians in the West. And in terms of Trump and his positions on Lebanon, or what he has as a future, if you look over the last 80 years of American policy in the region, and you don't see the end and beginning of terms of different presidents, you would think it's all one president that was governing these policies and implementing them. So we see a continuity over the last 80 years of American policy, which is to kill and fragment Arabic people and Arabic states, and to strengthen and expand the Zionist colony at the cost of the Arab lives and Arab land. So there is no change, and I think Trump will continue his policy, the policies of Biden towards Lebanon, as he's continuing them to the rest of the region.
Yemen, Ansarullah in Yemen announced that they shut down a MQ-9 drone, intelligence drone. And how do you see the situation right now with Yemen? And we know that they have been targeting Israel as well. Just it was yesterday that they've been targeting with ballistic missiles.
Yeah. Look, the Yemenis, I think, shot 19 of those MQ-9s. I think each one of them is worth something like $30 million, each one of these MQ-9s. So, we're talking a huge price tag. And we also just saw videos of sailors.
I've lost you. Yeah. You're muted, Laith. Yeah.
No?
No, you're back. You're back.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So the MQ-9s, and we also saw videos of American soldiers conducting, fixing operations on the Truman. So the aircraft carrier was hit clearly by the Yemeni resistance. And when you put this in the context of the Saudis starting right now confrontations on the borders of Yemen, that means that the Americans are failing. They need now ground operations to try to distract the Yemeni resistance and open other fronts on them, because America's naval and air bombardment campaign is failing, and it's very costly. I think up until now, the Americans have spent over $10 billion on this war against Yemen. And if we put it in context, with Syria, the Americans also just admitted that they spent $2 billion a year on the war on Syria. So that's, 15 years, that's like $30 billion at least. Add to it what the Qataris did spend, and the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Turks. And we know now that the war on Syria has been the most costly military operation and overthrow operation in the history of the United States. You see, like, I want people to understand, Syria we resisted the most expensive overthrow campaign in the history, modern history, for 15 years. So you could imagine how long Yemen can resist and how more expensive it's going to be as an operation to try to overthrow the government in Yemen. Time is not on the side of the Zionists and the imperialists. The only thing that the imperialists and the Zionists can do in the region is kill innocent lives. They can't win wars through direct military confrontation. They can kill, innocents. They can destroy infrastructure. They can starve populations, but they can't win wars with direct confrontation, as we saw in Syria and now we're seeing in Yemen.
Laith, we had the first talks between the United States and Iran. And do you see the way that the Trump administration tried to talk with Iranian is because of what has happened in Yemen? Because they know if Yemen is capable of resisting or fighting back, what would be the case with Iran? And how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, the Americans just yesterday or the day before, just before they walked into these talks, where Trump was saying he's gonna blame Iran for every bullet that's fired by the Yemenis, and Iran will pay the price. But it's still continuing, obviously, and Iran didn't get attacked. That doesn't mean that Iran's not gonna get attacked. I personally think that the war is coming, no matter what we try. And now, the decisions by the Zionists and
I lost you, Laith. Yeah, just you can replace it. Yeah. Yeah, you're muted, Laith.
how is it now?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Okay, forget
Yeah.
this. I'm not gonna do this again. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah. So I was saying that this war is gonna come no matter what we try. And this is because, as we've seen, the decisions of the Zionists and the imperialists behind them have ceased to be logical anymore. Their main goal is to make sure that the Zionist colony is permanent and that the American hegemony over the Arabs is permanent. And this is an unachievable goal in the situation of the maintenance of the Zionist colony. If you want to follow just logical paths to that. So the options in front of the Americans and the Zionists are all irrational options. Major genocide, for instance, against the Palestinians. This is an irrational option, given that we're in the 22nd century, right? To try to make the presence of the Americans in the region permanent and the domination of the Arabic people permanent, that will require you to nuke Iran. You cannot have a traditional war with Iran and defeat them. It's not a small country. It's not a country that is dependent on foreign supply of weapons. It's not a country that needs oil and gas from external sources. is very self-sufficient country with a huge territory, a huge population, and a huge industrial base and agricultural base. So the only path forward to defeat Iran would be nuclear war. And so that's an irrational option. But as I was saying, the Americans and the Israelis have ran out of rational options long time ago. And this is why we see them behave this way. And the longer they're engaged in irrational decisions, in irrational attacks on civilians and use of forbidden weapons, and the more time this plays out on, the more effect this has on all the abilities of the Zionists and the empire, even outside the region, as we see the actions of the Zionists have huge consequences, not only on the Palestinians and in the region here, or how the Arabs and the Palestinians and the Muslims look at Israel, but how the whole world looks at them. And similarly, the more the United States is bullying to our region, the more others are deciding to find partners, other partners, to do trade with or to have military alliances with, and that's going to have lasting consequences. And the United States right now, its inability to bully other countries into its trade, tariffs and so forth, and agreements, is a direct result of the Palestinians still standing against the empire, Yemen facing off with the empire, and the costs of maintenance of American presence in the region accelerating. So, tomorrow, yesterday, or the day before, China wouldn't have been in this position had it not for Yemen and or Palestine or Lebanon or Iran doing, resisting in such ways. So the consequences of the irrational actions of the Zionists and the Americans in our region reverberate globally.
We know that the only issue that the United States and Iran are talking on is the case of nuclear program of Iran. Do you think that is somehow satisfying for the Arab states in the region? How do they feel about these talks? Do they want more than that? Do they want to bring the axis of resistance into the talks with Iran? How do I would wonder what is the feeling on their part right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, the vessels in the Arabian Peninsula want the whole destruction of the axis of resistance, not only Iran, most probably all the costs of the Israeli attacks on Lebanon, on Syria, on Palestine, and the genocide in Gaza have been paid for by the Emiratis, the Saudis, and the Bahrainis, if not also the Qataris. And so we know also from the meetings in 2006, during the 2006 war between these Arab states, that they were calling Israel and telling it to continue the war. And even here in 2004, the war, the Gulf monarchs were not happy that Israel stopped the war with Lebanon suddenly. They wanted it to continue to destroy all of Lebanon, not only to kill Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and some of the leadership of Hezbollah. They wanted a full defeat of Hezbollah. And because, the biggest danger for these vassals in the region is that there will be a strong Arabic loved leader that is resisting the Zionists. Just the example of that person puts them in a bad light. And they want basically everybody to be the Muhammad al-Jolani is kind of kissing the ring of the Zionists openly and killing anybody within their own population that dares stand in the way of the Zionists. So I am sure, we heard all those statements from Qatar and Saudi and Emirates that they will not allow the Americans to use their bases to attack Iran. That's all lies. They will be. It's not only that they don't have any choice what bases America uses because they are house slaves, but also because they personally want it to happen. They would be kind of advertising it to everybody that they were part of this attack on Iran if the United States succeeds in breaking Iran in such a war. The Ansarullah in Yemen are kind of an arch enemy for the Saudis. So I'm sure the Saudi government is telling the United States that it wants all of the axis of resistance on the table of negotiations, not only the weapons of Iran or its nuclear program. And Iran knows that if it doesn't have allies in the region, in the axis of resistance, that it will be left alone. So that's not going to happen. Ansarullah or Hezbollah are a more important weapon as an ally of Iran than Iran holding nuclear weapons. You see, so now will the Iranian negotiators hold on to these positions? I think so. I think so. I don't think Iran and or the leadership of Iran, the current leadership of Iran, no matter how many criticism we may have for them, I don't think they will be able to take a action that is harmful to Iran. There's the military in Iran that has a say, and there's the Ayatollah that has a say. So looking to the future, I think we're going to enter this 4 or 5, maybe 6 months of negotiations between Iran and the United States. And both sides during these negotiations will be playing all their regional cards to increase the pressure on each other. And at the end of those 6 months, we will see what happens.
Actually, we had in the news that the fuel provided to the United States in the Diego Garcia, to the bombers, to the airplanes, and all of that is mostly provided by UAE. And I don't know if Yemen or Iran, if something happens between Iran and the United States, they're going to target, they're going to hit UAE. They're not going to let them survive. And that is dangerous. That would be a new escalation in the region.
I think it should be the number one target. The minute there is a war between the United States and Iran, the number one target should be all the oil and gas infrastructure and cutting all the movement of those around the region in the straits. And this will mean that the United States will have to bring jet fuel and Navy ship fuel from far away. And it's not going to be anywhere close even. They will have to bring it maybe from Indonesia, from Brunei, and or all the way to Nigeria, and or all the way from Scandinavia. Those are the closest points where countries would be supplying the United States military with fuel for their jets and for their ships. So if that happens, all the American equipment in the region will stay on the tarmac, will not be able to move. And this is why I think, in a way, for the last 100 years, or 80 years more correctly, for the last 80 years, all the anti-colonization, decolonization movements in the region have made a big mistake in allowing the gas and oil of Arabia to continue flowing, because the flow of this gas and oil is what financed the empire and what ran the death machine of the empire and the ability of the United States to project power into Asia and Africa. And so for the future, either this oil and gas has to be liberated from American control and the vessels that control it, and or it should be burnt, because it's definitely not 1 cent of this oil and gas money over the last 80 years has benefited the Arabic and Muslim peoples in the region.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Laith, for being with us today. Great pleasure as always.
Thank you. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.